Stop. Before you keep watching, give yourself one honest second. If you're between 18 and 70 and you feel like life is moving forward while you're somehow standing on the sidelines, if you're trying, taking action, doing something, but real results are either painfully slow or completely absent. If you know you're not stupid, not lazy, and clearly capable of more, yet you keep finding yourself far from where you thought you'd be by now, then this video is for you. Let me be clear right away. You don't need another motivational video. You don't need pretty words, loud promises, or fairy tales about overnight success. You've heard all of that hundreds of times already, and if it actually worked, your life would look very different by now. What you need is the truth. An uncomfortable, harsh, but honest truth about why some people grow, build wealth, become strong and free, while others stay stuck for years, always finding new excuses. Circumstances, the past, their parents, the system, bad timing. No one ever taught us how to live properly. We were taught to be convenient, to endure, to wait, and to hope that one day everything would somehow fix itself. We were told that time would bring everything, but no one mentioned the most important part. Time brings nothing to those who refuse to change. It simply passes, and life passes with it. This video is not here to inspire you or make you feel good. It's a guide to real life, where discipline always matters more than motivation, character matters more than talent, and decisions matter more than dreams and desires. There will be no pity here, because pity is the enemy of growth. What you will hear instead is what most people don't want to hear, and that's exactly what changes the direction of a life. If you're ready to stop lying to yourself, take responsibility, and finally start living consciously, relentlessly, and by your own rules, watch until the end. If you're looking for another excuse for why it's not the right time yet, close this video now. From here on, it's only the truth. Let's begin. Every time someone's comment, look, or opinion gets under your skin, you give up your power. Every time you replay a conversation that's already over, you're leaking energy. And if you're watching this right now, chances are you're tired. Tired of reacting, tired of proving yourself. Tired of feeling like the world is constantly pressing down on you while you barely have time to recover. The hard truth is this: the problem isn't other people, circumstances, or an unfair life. The problem is that you're too easy to control through your emotions. And until you change that, you will always be controlled. The strongest people aren't the ones with fewer problems. They're the ones problems no longer shake. They don't explode. They don't justify themselves. They don't argue. They observe, assess, and move forward. Imagine a state where nothing can throw you off balance. You're criticized and there's silence inside. Things don't go as planned and you stay calm. Someone tries to provoke you and you don't react. Not because you don't care, but because you no longer hand control of yourself to the outside world. This is the state you must learn to live in if you want real power, not an illusion of it. Most people live in constant dependence on external noise. They care about what others think, how they're judged, whether they're right, and that's exactly where their weakness lies. The moment your mood depends on someone else's words, you've already lost. When your inner peace depends on someone else's behavior, you are no longer in control of your life. Strength isn't about who responds the loudest, it's about who can afford not to react at all, because they understand the value of their energy. Have you noticed that truly confident people almost never rush? They don't explain themselves, they don't over-justify, they don't get dragged into pointless arguments. Their movements are calm. Their gaze is steady. They seem to know something most people don't. And what they know is simple. The less you react, the more power you have. When someone tries to provoke you and you simply stay silent and walk away, you take away their most powerful weapon, your reaction. You deny them the victory. You step out of a game designed to humiliate you. The same applies to failure. Most people don't break because they fail, they break because they identify with failure. They tell themselves, I'm a failure, something's wrong with me, I messed up again. And they stay stuck in that state for months, even years. Strong people do it differently. To them, Failure isn't a blow to their identity, it's information, data, experience. They don't chew on emotions, they extract lessons and move forward. While some drown in self-pity, others calmly recalibrate and come back more dangerous than before. Real strength begins with a pause. The pause between what happens and how you respond. In that moment, you either take control back or you give it away again. Every time you feel the urge to explode, defend yourself, or prove something, ask one simple question. Will this actually matter in a year? In 5 years? Or am I just wasting my energy right now? Most of the time, the answer is obvious. And when you consciously choose not to react, you start building armor inside yourself. You become harder to provoke, harder to destabilize, harder to break. You may not believe it yet, but the less you show that something affects you, the more respect you earn. People sense stability. They sense someone who doesn't panic, doesn't swing emotionally, doesn't lose control. It's felt without words. That's real charisma, calm, in the middle of chaos. And if you watch this video until the end, you'll understand how to reach that state step by step. A state where no one controls you anymore, where you don't suppress emotions, you command them, and where your strength becomes visible even when you say nothing at all. If you think the ability to stay calm is just about personality or psychology, you're deeply mistaken. This is directly about money, about growth, about influence, about why some people consistently get richer while others keep running in circles for years, even though they seem to be trying just as hard. Money doesn't go to people who are emotionally unstable. Money goes to those who can think cold, act precisely, and keep their head under pressure. Because every impulsive action is a mistake. Every emotional decision is a lost opportunity. Be honest with yourself. How many times have you made bad financial decisions on emotion? Invested in the wrong thing because you were afraid of missing out? Spent more than you should have just to feel better? Abandoned your plan because you were angry, exhausted, or disappointed? Emotions make you poorer. Not instantly, not obviously, but systematically. As long as you react instead of calculate, you are convenient. Easy to manipulate by advertising, by pressure, by other people's opinions. And as long as that's true, real wealth will remain out of reach. Strong people see reality differently. They don't cling to emotions, they manage them. When the market drops, they don't panic. When a deal falls apart, they don't collapse. When someone tries to knock them off course, they don't go to war. They understand one simple truth. Chaos is a filter. It removes the weak and rewards those who stay clear-headed. While others rush, justify, and get nervous, they calmly secure the best positions. And here's the key point that breaks most people's thinking. Emotional detachment is not coldness or indifference. It's discipline. It's the ability not to sell your attention and your state of mind to anyone who decides to press a button. The less you're triggered, the more you can focus on what actually matters. And what matters is always the same. Growth, skills, income, influence. Everything else is noise that drags you down. A poor person lives by reactions. He reacts to news, to comments, to other people's behavior. His mood swings and with it, his effectiveness. A wealthy person lives by strategy. He may feel anger, fear, or doubt, but he doesn't allow those states to control his decisions. He understands this. Every calm, well-calculated decision is a step forward. Every restrained reaction is a resource preserved. When you stop reacting to provocations, your perspective widens. You start noticing opportunities that used to pass you by. You stop proving and start earning. You stop arguing and start building. You stop explaining and start executing. This is the foundation of the mindset of people who rise above average. They don't waste energy on anyone who doesn't pay them dividends. And here is the decision that changes everything. You start treating your emotions as signals, not commands. You feel irritation, that means someone is trying to pull you out of balance. Good. You're on the right path. You feel fear, that means growth is ahead. But you don't stop. You observe and move forward. You stop making decisions in the heat of the moment. You give yourself a pause, and pause is a luxury of the strong. At that point, you become dangerous to a system that's used to pushing people's buttons, because you can't be bought with emotion. You can't be knocked off course by noise. You can't be forced to act against your own interests. You start moving slowly, but inevitably. And that's how real money is made. Not in chaos, not in hysteria, but in silence and control. And most importantly, people feel it. They start speaking to you differently. They start taking you seriously. Because calm under pressure is a sign of strength, and strength always attracts resources. Money flows to where there is control. Influence flows to where there is no chaos. And if you can hold yourself together while others fall apart, you automatically move into a different league. At some point, you realize a simple truth. Real power doesn't shout. It doesn't prove itself. It doesn't justify itself. It simply exists. The further you go, the quieter you become. Not because you have nothing to say, but because you no longer waste words. You stop explaining your moves to people who wouldn't understand them anyway. You stop revealing your plans. You stop reacting to every jab. And that's the moment you become truly dangerous, because you can no longer be read. Silence is not weakness, it's control. When you stay quiet, other people start talking. They reveal themselves rushing, fidgeting, filling the space. They expose their fears, their intentions, their insecurity, and you watch, you listen, you remember. In a world where everyone wants to be heard, the advantage belongs to the one who can hold the pause. The less you speak, the more weight your words carry. The less you explain, the more closely people observe you. The calmer your reactions, the stronger your presence feels. Control begins inside, not over people, not over circumstances, over yourself. While most people live on impulses, you live by principles. While they argue, you build. While they fight for validation, you calculate. You no longer enter conflicts that bring you no benefit. You don't spend energy on those who don't affect your path. You don't participate in drama because you understand the price of focus. And focus is the currency of the strong. This is what makes you untouchable. If you can't be provoked, you can't be knocked off course. If words can't hurt you, you can't be broken psychologically. If you can't be pushed into emotional decisions, you won't make fatal mistakes. You become someone who stays in the game even when everything around collapses. And people like that always take more than the rest. Inner strength is when you don't need the world's reaction to feel confident. When your state doesn't depend on approval, likes, praise, or recognition, you are your own point of support. And people feel it. They don't always understand why being around you makes them uncomfortable or, on the contrary, calm. They just sense that you don't need them. And the one who doesn't need is always higher in the hierarchy. You start moving in silence, working while others talk, growing while others argue, accumulating strength while others waste it on proving themselves. And at some point, the results begin to speak for you. No explanations, no justifications, no extra words. This is what real control over your life looks like. Remember this: the less you react, the fewer levers the world has over you. The calmer you are under pressure, the higher you rise. The quieter you move, the farther you go. In a world run by emotion, the one who wins is the one who controls himself. And if you make this the foundation of your life, one day you'll realize you've become someone who can't be shaken, can't be broken, and can't be stopped. Because you chose control. You chose silence. You chose strength. If we're being completely honest, most people will never become wealthy, not because they lack intelligence, connections, or opportunities, but because they can't endure the distance. They burn out on emotions. They react too much. They worry too much. They turn off course too often because of other people's words, temporary setbacks, and their own inner noise. Their lives become an endless chain of impulses. And impulses don't build capital. Impulses destroy it. Look at your life without illusions. How much energy have you already wasted on people who played no role in your future? How many decisions did you make while angry, afraid, or exhausted, and then pay for them for months? How many times did you know exactly what needed to be done, but didn't do it because you were emotionally drained? This is the real cost of lacking control. Not dramatic, not sudden, but quiet and cumulative. This is how people stay stuck for years, telling themselves, it's just not the right time yet. But time has nothing to do with it. Everything comes down to one question. Who controls your state, you or the outside world? As long as your emotions are being pulled by news, comments, other people's success, and pressure, you're not a player, you're a pawn. You can work hard, think hard, want a lot, but without inner control, all your effort will leak through your fingers. Because money favors those who are stable. Growth chooses those who can handle pressure. Influence goes to those who don't fall apart in moments of uncertainty. That's why real results are almost always created by quiet people. People you rarely see, but can't easily bypass. People who don't announce their plans, but methodically execute them. People who don't need to prove they're strong because they already know it. They may feel fear, doubt, or tension, but they don't allow those states to control their actions. They don't sell their attention. They don't give away their energy to anyone who tries to provoke them. They choose the pause. And the pause is a position of power. This is where the solution begins. It isn't flashy. It isn't fast, but it works. You stop asking yourself, how do I feel? And start asking, what is profitable right now? Not what feels good, not what calms the ego, but what moves you closer to the goal. You begin training cold clarity. When you want to respond, you stay silent. When you want to prove something, you calculate. When you want to quit, you take the next minimal step. This is how a person is formed who, over time, becomes financially dangerous. Because wealth is not a spike, it's a system. It's the ability to make rational decisions day after day, even when there's a storm inside. It's staying calm when others panic, not celebrating too early, not breaking too quickly. Once you develop this trait, life starts to change quietly but irreversibly. You lose less, you make fewer mistakes, you see opportunities more clearly. You choose people better. You approach risk more calmly. And all of that directly converts into money, growth, and influence. And most importantly, you stop being convenient. You're harder to pressure, harder to manipulate emotionally, harder to pull into other people's games. You no longer live in constant defense mode. You begin acting from a position of choice, and choice is a privilege of those who have control. At that point, you stop chasing results and start moving toward them, slowly, coldly, inevitably. Remember this state: silence inside, clarity in your mind, minimal reactions, maximum precision in action. This is what a person looks like who eventually pulls ahead. Not because they got lucky, but because they stopped fighting the world and took control of themselves. And if you truly want a different level of life, not fast, but real, start here. Not with money, not with schemes, not with motivation, but with the ability to hold yourself together when others lose control. Because in a world where most people live on emotion, the one who stays calm wins. In a world full of noise, the one who moves in silence rises. And if you can endure this path, one day you'll realize you're no longer looking for strength outside yourself. You've become it. Most people don't even realize the exact moment they lose control of their lives. Not in a year, not in 10 years, but every single morning, you open your eyes and before you even get out of bed, you've already given your power away. Your phone, your thoughts, the rush, the anxiety, other people's problems, other people's expectations. The day hasn't even started and you're already being led instead of leading, already reacting instead of deciding. Here's what you need to understand right now. If you don't take control of the first minutes of your morning, you won't take control of anything. Not your money, not your body, not your character, not your future. Because the morning is a mirror. It reveals who you truly are, not who you want to appear to be, not who you call yourself, but who you are when no one is watching. Most people wake up in reaction mode. The alarm goes off, irritation, the mind chaos, the body weak. They allow the world to enter their head first. The news, other people's crises, other people's fears. And by doing that, they sign a contract for a mediocre life. Because if you start your day as a victim of circumstances, that's exactly what you remain. Winners live differently. Not because life is easier for them, but because they choose differently. They understand one simple truth. The way you start your day is the way you live your life. The first minutes after waking up are not just time, they are a statement. Either you declare, "I'm in control," or you admit, "I am being controlled." Stand up and ask yourself a hard question. Who is leading my life today, me or the external noise? Because the moment you reach for your phone, you've already told the day, "Do whatever you want with me. Thanks for watching." The moment you hit snooze, you train weakness. You teach your mind to retreat. And a mind trained for comfort will betray you in every moment of pressure. That's why the first decision of your morning must be hard. Not pleasant, not comfortable, hard. Something that creates resistance inside you. Cold, discomfort, effort. Because when you do the hard thing first, you break the authority of laziness. You prove to yourself who's in charge. And that's when the shift happens. You stop waiting for motivation. You create it through action. Most people wait until they feel like it, and that's why they stay stuck for life. Strong people act when they don't feel like it, and that's exactly why the desire eventually follows. The mind is a muscle. If you train it to surrender every day, it becomes weak. If you train it to obey strength, it becomes your weapon. Your goal in the morning is not to feel inspired. Your goal is to make a declaration, to stand up and state who you are. Because words are not just sounds, they are commands. Most people program themselves for defeat every morning. "I'm tired. I didn't sleep enough. Another hard day." And then they wonder why their life keeps matching their language. You must speak differently. Not because it's magic, but because the subconscious doesn't argue, it executes. What you repeat is what you become. In the morning, you must speak the language of strength, calmly, confidently, without drama. Today I lead. Today I move forward. Today I create momentum. And the body follows. Behavior aligns. Reality begins to respond. One more thing, your body is not just a shell, it's a state switch. A weak body creates a weak mind. Slouched shoulders produce doubt. Shallow breathing produces anxiety. That's why movement in the morning isn't about fitness. It's about authority over yourself. Stand up, straighten your posture, breathe deeply, set the tone. Even 10 minutes of movement changes everything. You exit survival mode and enter control mode. Remember this, you don't need perfect conditions. They will never come. Winners start with what they have, because action creates energy, not the other way around. And if you think these are small things, you're wrong. There are no small things here, because these small choices either build a powerful life or a lifetime of excuses. And next, I'll show you exactly what to do with your first thoughts, your first focus, and your first decision so the day starts working for you, not against you. Don't leave. The most important part is coming. There is one reason you feel like the days keep passing, but your life isn't moving. One reason, you don't control your attention. You allow the very first thoughts of the day to pull you toward your weakest points. You wake up and immediately, your head fills with other people's voices, problems you haven't even touched yet, fears that haven't happened, comparisons with those who already made it. And in that moment, you lose the most valuable thing you have, the right to choose who you're going to be today. Most people don't realize that in the morning, their mind is open like a door with no lock. Whatever enters first becomes the owner of the house. And if what enters first is anxiety, urgency, news, someone else's agenda, don't be surprised that by evening you feel drained, angry, and empty. You let chaos in. You sign the agreement for inner disorder yourself. Strong people do the opposite. They understand this. The first minutes are a land grab. Either you occupy your mind or someone else will do it for you. And trust me, the world will not be gentle. It will load you with fear, urgency, and other people's problems. It will assign you the role of a cog in the machine. And if you stay silent, you're agreeing. That's why silence in the morning is not a spiritual practice. It's an act of power. It's the moment you say, right now, the world doesn't speak. I do. Most people are afraid of silence because in silence, you hear the truth. And the truth is uncomfortable. The truth shows you where you're lazy, where you lie to yourself, where you keep postponing your life. That's why people run from silence, into noise, into the feed, into other people's opinions. Anything as long as they don't have to sit with the question, why am I still not where I want to be? But if you can't handle silence, you won't handle growth either. Because growth begins exactly where there's nothing left to distract you. Do you think leaders are born confident? No. They simply meet themselves before they meet the world every single day. They sit in silence while others sleep. They breathe deeper while others rush. They think while others consume. And that's why later on, it looks like they're lucky. The longest brays of Dodd, bass, and Olo. There's one more thing most people avoid. Paper, a blank page, because paper doesn't lie. In your head, you can fantasize forever. On paper, only the truth remains. And if you don't write, you don't anchor. And what isn't anchored doesn't exist. Ideas become ghosts. Goals become wishes. Intentions become self-deception. You say you want more. Fine. Where is it written? You say you have a plan. Where is it? In your head? Then it doesn't exist. Until you write it down, you haven't decided. You're just dreaming. And the world doesn't pay dreamers. The world pays those who can turn mental chaos into clear direction. 5 minutes of writing in the morning can do more than an entire day of running around. Because writing is an act of leadership over your mind. You slow down, you look inward, you separate what matters from the noise. And suddenly, it becomes clear why you're stuck. Not because you're weak, but because you're unclear. And let's be honest, you already know what you need to do. You're just postponing it because it's scary, because it requires responsibility. Because once it's written, you can't say, I didn't know. Writing strips you of excuses. It forces you to look your life in the eyes. That's why most people avoid it. But if you want to stop being average, you don't have a choice. You must start anchoring things, thoughts, goals, fears, tasks, because what's written begins to govern your actions. Your day starts organizing itself around what you claimed in the morning, not around what was imposed on you. And if you think these are small details, ask yourself this: why don't you have what you want yet? Why do your days all feel the same? Why so much effort and so little result? Because you're living without an internal command, without a clear course, without a morning takeover of control. Next, I'll show you how one simple morning practice can break the inner emptiness, remove the feeling of constant chasing, and give you a sense of power before the day even begins. It will be uncomfortable, and that's exactly why it works. Stay with me. And now you can exhale. Because everything I've talked about isn't about breaking yourself or becoming someone else. It's about finally stopping the war with yourself. You don't need a perfect morning. You don't need to wake up at 5 a.m. You don't need to be made of steel. You need to be honest and consistent. Most people don't quit because they're weak. They quit because they overload themselves. They think that if they're starting a new life, it has to be everything at once. Early wake-ups, workouts, reading, meditation, planning, flawless discipline, and the brain gets scared. It goes into defense mode, it sabotages, and the person ends up back in the same old loop. So drop the extremes. Your task in the morning isn't to change your entire life. Your task is to give it direction, nothing more. Morning isn't a race, it's a calibration. Start simple. You wake up, don't grab your phone, just sit. Take 10 calm breaths. You don't need to think about the meaning of life. Just let your body understand that there's no rush. The world can wait. At that moment, your nervous system already begins to release tension you've been carrying for months. Then ask one question, just one. What truly matters today? Not a list of 10 tasks, not chaos. One focus, one point. Even if the day is hard, even if there's a lot to do, you need one anchor. When you have it, anxiety fades because clarity appears. Take a piece of paper or your notes and write a few lines. Not nicely, not correctly, honestly. What's spinning in your head? What's pressing on you? What's demanding attention? You don't have to solve everything right away, you just need to get it out. The moment thoughts move outside of you, they stop suffocating you. And yes, add gratitude right there. Not because it's trendy or the right thing to do, but as support. Name 3 things you're grateful for right now. Not big things, simple ones. This brings you back to a reality where you're not broken and not too late, where you already have a foundation to move from. Understand this, you're not empty. You're not starting from zero. You're just tired. And morning is the moment when you can regain the feeling of solid ground under your feet without strain, without pressure, without a fight. Next comes movement. Not a workout, not a heroic act, just turning the body on. Stretch, walk, step outside. The body is a button, you press it, your state changes. And when the state changes, your thinking changes with it. You stop being trapped inside your own head. And this is where the real shift happens. The day hasn't even started yet, and you're already out of chaos. You're not jerking around. You're not chasing. You're standing on your own feet. And from this state, decisions are made differently, calmer, sharper, cleaner. That's the real victory of the morning. Not being productive, but being composed. When there's order inside, it starts appearing outside on its own. You rush less. You get irritated less. You waste less energy on nonsense. And if today you do even half of this, that's already a step. Don't devalue it. Life doesn't change through sudden leaps, but through repetition. Tomorrow again, the day after again. And at some point, you'll catch yourself feeling, I'm no longer drifting, I'm moving. Next, I'll show you how to move from this state of calm into a state of strength. How to choose yourself every morning, not on emotion, but at the level of identity. And why this decision is what makes a person steady, confident, and noticeable without saying a word. Stay with me. And now, the most important part. Everything we've talked about means nothing if you don't make one choice. The choice most people postpone for their entire lives. Every morning, before the world has a chance to demand anything from you, you must decide who you will be today. Not what you will do, but who you will become in this day. The problem for most people isn't a lack of opportunities, it's a lack of identity. They live according to mood, fatigue, circumstances, motivated today, empty tomorrow. Confident one day, doubtful the next. And years pass like this. Because when you don't choose who you are, the world will choose for you. And trust me, it won't choose in your favor. Strong people move differently. They don't ask, how do I feel? They ask, who have I decided to be? And from that decision, everything else flows. Words, movements, reactions, actions. Feelings come later. They always do. Stand up in the morning and ask yourself an honest question. Who must I be today in order to become the person I want to be for life? Calm or reactive? Courageous or convenient? Focused or scattered? This isn't philosophy. It's a choice you confirm with every action throughout the day. Face the truth. You already know who you need to be. Sometimes you're just afraid to take on that role. Because then there's nowhere to hide, no excuses. No, that's just how I am. You'll have to become different. And that's frightening. But that's exactly where growth begins. When you choose your identity in the morning, the world starts responding differently. Not because you got louder, but because you became steadier. People sense those who are grounded in themselves, who don't drift, who don't ask for permission to be who they are. Confidence isn't in words, it's in tone, in pauses, in how you enter the day. You stop reacting to every little thing, you stop proving yourself, you stop chasing. You know who you are, and a person who knows who they are doesn't need constant validation. And remember this, you don't have to be perfect. You have to be faithful to your choice. Even if today you did a little less, even if you slipped somewhere, return to the decision, not to emotions, not to the past, but to who you decided to be. This is how character is formed, not in one day, but through repetition, day after day, morning after morning. You don't chase greatness, you step into it. one step at a time. And one day you'll look back and realize you're no longer trying to become strong. You simply are. So tomorrow morning, don't rush. Don't give yourself away to the first noise. Sit down, breathe, remind yourself who you are. Choose your direction, choose your tone, choose your level, and step into the day already a different person. The world always adjusts to those who put order inside first. Not because it's fair, but because it senses strength. And when you start behaving like someone who takes responsibility, life begins to treat you accordingly. You're not late, you're not broken, you're not lost. You've just gone too long without stepping into the role of leader in your own life. Fix that. Not tomorrow, not someday, starting with the very next morning, because that's where everything is decided. You want to become wealthy, but something is constantly holding you back. And right now, you're about to hear words that aren't pleasant, the kind of truth most people click away from. If you watch this until the end, you'll already be stronger than 90% of people. Because most aren't ready to admit that their poverty isn't a lack of opportunities, but a set of daily habits slowly killing their potential. It's not the absence of money that's stopping you. It's what you spend it on. It's not the government, your boss, or the market holding you back. It's where your attention goes. Because money flows to those who have focus, energy, and discipline. So be honest, where does your attention go for most of the day? You wake up and the first thing you do is reach for your phone. Not your goals, not your plan, not action, your phone. You get stuck scrolling short videos that give you nothing but steal hours of your life. The algorithms know more about you than you know about yourself, and they have no interest in you becoming wealthy. They profit from keeping you tired, distracted, and constantly craving another hit of dopamine. While you scroll, someone else is working. While you watch, someone else is building. While you consume, someone else is earning. Adult content is a trap of its own. It's free dopamine that makes you weaker every single time. It doesn't relax you, it drains you. It kills motivation, lowers your energy, and turns you passive. A man who regularly pours his energy into a screen will never be hungry for wealth. There's no inner fire left. He gets used to pleasure without creation. And wealth never comes to those who live for easy gratification. You eat what's convenient, not what makes you strong. Sugar, junk food, constant snacking, and then you wonder why you have no energy, no focus, no mental clarity. A weak body cannot build a wealthy life. You can't think strategically when your body is constantly inflamed and exhausted. Discipline doesn't start with money, it starts with what you put into your mouth. Alcohol is a socially approved break. They call it relaxing, but in reality, it's moving backward. While you unwind on the weekends, your goals are pushed further into the future. It doesn't just steal your money, it steals your clarity, your confidence, and your self-respect. Wealthy people protect their state, physical and mental. Poor people look for ways to numb it. But the most dangerous thing isn't your phone, alcohol, or food. The most dangerous thing is the habit of postponing life. You're always preparing, but never starting. You understand everything, but you don't act. You save videos, books, and ideas, but you implement nothing. You live under the illusion that one day the right moment will come. It won't. Never. You're afraid of looking foolish, afraid of making mistakes, afraid of being judged. And while you hesitate, others try, fail, get back up, and earn. God doesn't give money to those who seek comfort. He gives it to those who are ready to take responsibility. And responsibility means cutting away the unnecessary everything that makes you weak, distracted, and dependent. If you're feeling resistance right now, that's a good sign. It means you recognize yourself. It means this video isn't just playing in the background, it's hitting where it hurts. And it's gonna get even harder from here because there are things that seem normal, but are exactly what keep people poor for years. And if you want to break free, watch until the end. There's another reason you're still not wealthy, and it's not obvious at first glance. It's the environment around you, the kind that pulls you down softly, almost invisibly. The people around you don't wish you harm, but they don't want you to grow either, because your growth reflects their weakness. When you start thinking bigger, working harder, and cutting out what's unnecessary, you become uncomfortable for them. And instead of support, you hear jokes, doubts, and phrases like, "Keep it simple. No one needs that much." or money isn't everything. That's not philosophy, that's justification. You keep spending time with people who live paycheck to paycheck, resent the wealthy, and laugh at ambition. You absorb their fears, their limitations, their logic, and then you wonder why your goals start to feel unrealistic. Money doesn't come to a mind that constantly listens to poor conversations. If problems are discussed more than solutions in your circle, you're already losing. You've learned how to stay busy, but not effective. You're constantly moving, yet getting nowhere. Your days disappear into chaos, small tasks, and urgent distractions that don't bring you any closer to wealth. You reply to messages, solve other people's problems, and prioritize other people's needs while postponing your own, day after day. This is the trap of false productivity. You get tired, but you don't grow. You don't control your time. And if you don't control your time, you don't control your money. Every wealthy person first learned how to protect their hours, only then did they learn how to make millions. You, on the other hand, give your attention away for free to notifications, other people's problems, meaningless conversations, shows, and news. Your attention is currency, and you're spending it carelessly. You say you want money, but internally you're conflicted. You want results without changing your lifestyle. You want freedom without accepting discipline. You want big money, but you still think in survival mode. You're afraid of large sums, afraid of responsibility, afraid to step outside what's familiar. Wealth isn't a number, it's a level of thinking. And as long as you think like the poor, any money you get will slip through your fingers. You don't know how to tolerate discomfort. Every difficulty feels like a signal to retreat. Every bit of fatigue becomes a reason to stop. Any resistance convinces you that this isn't for you. But the truth is, the money is exactly where it's hard. The easy paths are already crowded with millions just like you. The hard ones require character. You're waiting for motivation. You believe one day you'll wake up with fire inside and everything will change. But motivation is a myth for the weak. Only habits and systems work. Wealthy people act even when they don't feel like it, especially when they don't feel like it. And while you wait for the right mood, the right sign, the right moment, years quietly disappear. You're rarely honest with yourself. You say you're trying, but you know you could do more. You say you don't have time, yet you waste hours. You say you weren't lucky, but you refuse to take full responsibility. God isn't obligated to give you more if you don't use what you already have. Potential without action is worthless. And if this is uncomfortable to hear right now, that means you're still alive. It means there is ambition inside you that you've been suppressing for a long time, and a moment of choice is coming next. Either you keep living the same way, or you start cutting away everything that makes you weak. Because there are still a few things ahead that seem normal, but they're exactly what permanently block people from money. And if you want to know what they are, don't turn this off. The most important part is ahead. There's another reason money keeps passing you by, and it doesn't sound pleasant. You don't finish what you start. You get excited about an idea, feel a surge of energy, make plans, but the moment routine sets in, you lose momentum. You start, then you quit. And every time you quit, you train yourself to be poor, because wealth rewards completion. Money goes to those who can endure boredom, repetition, and monotony. You live in consumer mode, not creator mode. You watch, listen, read, get inspired, but you rarely create anything. And money doesn't pay for knowledge. It pays for value, for results, for problems solved. As long as you only consume, you're fueling someone else's dreams instead of your own. The solution here is simple but uncomfortable. Create something every single day. Content, a product, a skill, a system. Let it be imperfect. Let it be rough. Just make it consistent. You don't set clear financial goals. In your mind, there's a vague, I want a lot of money, but no numbers, no deadlines, no plan. And without that, your brain doesn't know where to go. Wealthy people don't just dream, they calculate. They know how much they want to earn, why they want it, and by when. The solution starts with an honest answer. How much do you need each month to live the life you want, and what exactly are you willing to change to get there? You're afraid to sell, afraid to charge money for your work, afraid to name a price. Somewhere inside you sits the belief that money is dirty, dangerous, or unworthy. And until you rewrite that belief, you'll either work for pennies or overwork without growth. The solution is to start respecting your own labor. Money flows to confidence and internal value. If you don't believe in yourself, the market won't either. You scatter your focus. You grab onto everything at once because you're afraid of missing out. Courses, ideas, niches, projects, and in the end, no real results. Wealth doesn't like chaos. It likes focus. One skill, one direction, one point of growth. The solution is to choose one path and go deep, not wide. Not for a month or two, but until results appear. You rarely ask yourself hard questions. You don't ask, why am I still here? What exactly am I doing wrong? Which habits are pulling me down? You'd rather distract yourself than face the truth. But the solution begins with an honest audit of your life. Remove the excess. Limit access to what drains your energy. Make discipline the standard, not a heroic act. You think wealth is about luck, but the truth is it's about choices. Small, daily, almost invisible ones. Choosing to go to bed earlier instead of scrolling. Choosing to work on yourself instead of wasting the evening. Choosing temporary discomfort over temporary pleasure for future freedom. These choices don't look heroic, but they're the ones that change the trajectory of your life. God doesn't look at your desires, He looks at your actions. Not at what you say, but at how you live. If your daily life doesn't reflect your goal, that goal will remain a fantasy. The solution isn't one massive breakthrough, but becoming one step more dangerous to your old self every single day. And right now, you're standing at a point where you can still turn things around. As long as you're listening to this, you still have a chance. But there's one last thing ahead that almost no one talks about. It breaks even the smart and hardworking. And if you don't remove it, all your efforts will be reset to zero. This is where real transformation begins. Don't stop. There's one final thing that holds you back from becoming wealthy more than anything else. It's quieter than the rest, but far more destructive. It's the habit of self-pity. Not outwardly, internally. The moment you say you're tired, that it's hard, that everyone has it different, you give up responsibility and hand your life over to something else. Self-pity looks like self-care, but in reality, it's a form of surrender. You compare your behind-the-scenes life to someone else's highlight reel and conclude that it wasn't meant for you. You look at people who are ahead of you, and instead of asking how, you ask, why not me? That's a victim mindset. And victims don't become wealthy, they get used. While you search for excuses, others search for solutions. You've lived in waiting mode for too long, waiting for support, understanding, perfect conditions. But no one is coming to do this work for you. Your family, your friends, society, they're not obligated to believe in you. That responsibility is yours. God didn't give you a guarantee of success. He gave you the power of choice. And every day, you either choose growth or you choose comfort. Stop waiting for things to get easier. They won't, but you will get stronger. Stop waiting for confidence. It comes after action, not before. Stop waiting for permission. No one is going to give it to you. The world doesn't reward potential, it pays for executed value. The solution is simple and ruthless. Cut off everything that drags you down. Reduce the noise. Remove unnecessary pleasures. Take back control of your time, your body, and your attention. Start living as if no one has your back, because that's the truth. And that's not a tragedy, that's freedom. From this moment on, your task is to become dangerous to your old self. Do what it hates. Wake up earlier, work deeper, think bigger, endure longer. Don't demand results every day, but be in the process every single day. Don't chase quick wins, build the foundation. God doesn't test you once. He tests you every day through the same choices. And if you pass that test again and again, sooner or later, life responds. With money, with opportunities, with people, but only after you stop being convenient and become disciplined. And right now, in this moment, you have a choice. Close this video and return to your old life, or hold on to this inner tension and use it as fuel. Not inspiration, not emotion, but a cold decision to never betray yourself again, because wealth isn't luck. It's the side effect of days lived correctly. And if you're ready to stop being weak, you've already begun the path. If you're watching this video right now, it means there's a feeling inside you that you're capable of more. But reality isn't changing. Day after day looks the same. Money is hard to earn, energy is low, confidence is slipping, and time is running through your fingers. And the truth is this: wealth is not luck, and it's not chance. Wealth is a side effect of habits. And if you do what the majority does, you'll get what the majority gets. And the majority is not wealthy. This video is not motivation, it's an instruction. And if you watch it to the end, you'll understand why some people consistently grow while others spend years stuck in the same place. It all starts in the morning. While most people are sleeping, the wealthy are already winning the first round of the day. Waking up early isn't about pretty quotes, it's about control. Either you control your morning or the day controls you. When you wake up early, you gain silence, focus, and time for yourself. And time is currency. People who are always late will always be poor, not only in money, but in opportunities. Next is your body. People want to earn more, yet they fuel themselves with junk. You can't build a strong life on a weak body. Proper nutrition isn't about appearance, it's about mental clarity, energy, and endurance. Wealth is a long game, and alcohol, sugar, and chaotic eating slowly make you weaker, slower, and duller, even if you don't notice it. Training isn't a hobby, it's the foundation of discipline. Every workout is a contract with yourself that you either honor or break. And if you can't force yourself to move for 40 minutes a day, you won't be able to push yourself to earn more when things get hard. Physical strength is directly connected to inner strength. A weak body almost always walks alongside a weak will. Next comes planning. Poor people live by reaction, wealthy people live by a plan. If you don't have a clear structure for your day, week, and month, you don't have control over your life. You're constantly putting out fires, getting distracted, jumping from task to task, and ending the day exhausted without real progress. Planning means deciding in advance where your time will go instead of giving it away to everything and everyone. Then there's focus. While you're being pulled in dozens of directions by goals, messengers, and notifications, other people quietly do one thing every single day. Your phone is the biggest thief of your future. Checking it every 5 minutes means voluntarily giving up deep work. And without deep work, there are no big results. The ability to concentrate today is a rare skill, and that's exactly why it pays so well. Another habit that changes everything is daily learning. Not endless motivation consumption, but practical knowledge. Wealthy people either learn or apply every day. They don't wait for the perfect moment. They read, listen, analyze, test, and fail. If you don't upgrade your thinking, you'll stay stuck at the level of your old decisions forever. And the most important thing, responsibility. As long as you blame circumstances, the system, your family, your partner, or your past, you're giving away control over your life. Wealth begins the moment you honestly admit, everything I have is the result of my actions and my habits. It hurts, but that's exactly where real power begins. This is only the beginning. It gets harder from here, because there are habits that directly separate people with money from those who will spend their entire lives being almost ready. And if you truly want to understand what helps you become wealthy, don't turn this video off. The most important part is ahead. Most people genuinely believe they lack knowledge or luck. But the truth is different. They lack the courage to look at themselves honestly. One of the key habits that leads to money is the ability to do what's uncomfortable. Wealth almost always lives outside the comfort zone, where it's scary, inconvenient, and offers no instant gratification. If you live by the principle of whatever makes things easier, you've already chosen poverty, even if you're not ready to admit it yet. People who become wealthy know how to delay gratification. While some spend money they haven't earned yet, others invest time and effort without seeing immediate results. The ability to say no to yourself today for a yes tomorrow is the foundation of financial growth. If you buy emotions to numb emptiness, you will never build abundance. Money favors composure, not impulsiveness. The next habit is your environment. You will never rise above the average level of the people you spend the most time with. This isn't a motivational quote, it's mathematics. If you're surrounded by people who constantly complain, talk about others, fear, risk, and live paycheck to paycheck, your ceiling is already set. Wealthy people choose their environment intentionally. They seek those who think bigger, earn more, and don't pull them backward. Sometimes growth begins with loneliness, because not everyone is ready to move forward. Very few people say this openly, but the ability to sell is one of the most valuable habits in the world. It doesn't matter what you do. If you can't communicate value, negotiate, and influence through words, you will always depend on those who can. Sales isn't about manipulation, it's about confidence, structured thinking, and understanding people. Every conversation either moves you closer to money or pushes you further away. And if you avoid communication because you fear rejection, you're paying for it with your financial freedom. Another habit that separates the wealthy is tracking their finances. People without money almost never know where it goes. Chaos in your finances always reflects chaos in your mind. Controlling income and expenses isn't about being cheap, it's about awareness. Until you manage the numbers manage you. Money loves order, even when there isn't much of it yet. What also matters is how you relate to mistakes. Poor people fear making mistakes, wealthy people fear not trying. Every failure is the price of experience, but only for those who draw conclusions. If you get burned once and shut down forever, you've chosen safety over growth, and safety rarely leads to real wealth. And one more thing, patience. This quality has almost disappeared today. Everyone wants results fast, preferably yesterday. But real money is built slowly, step by step, month by month, year by year. Those who can endure boredom, routine, and repetition eventually outperform those who are constantly searching for a shortcut. If you feel that much of this is about you, don't turn this video off. What comes next are the habits that break the old identity and create a new version of you. That's where real financial growth begins. At some point, you have to understand one uncomfortable truth. Poverty is not the absence of money, it's a mindset. And as long as you are poor on the inside, no opportunity will stay with you for long. People who reach wealth don't just change their habits, they change their sense of self. They stop seeing themselves as small, dependent, and asking. They begin to think like the owners of their own lives. One of the core habits is self-respect. It may sound abstract, but in real life, it shows up everywhere, in how you speak, how you keep your word, and how you choose what to accept and what to refuse. If you constantly bend, tolerate disrespect, work for pennies, and are afraid to say no, you're training the world to treat you cheaply. Money goes where there is inner value. Next comes the habit of keeping your word. Most people don't take themselves or their promises seriously. They easily break plans, postpone tasks, and find excuses. But every time you break a promise to yourself, you weaken your own confidence. Wealthy people do what they said they would do, even when they don't feel like it. That's why they're trusted, and trust always converts into money. There's another truth almost no one wants to hear. You will have to become uncomfortable. You'll have to stop being good for everyone. Stop trying to be liked by all. The habit of placing your goals above other people's expectations is painful, but necessary. As long as you live for approval, you'll live by someone else's script. And someone else's script rarely leads to your wealth. A very important habit is the ability to work in silence. Not announcing your plans, goals, and ideas to everyone. Not seeking approval at the starting line. Wealthy people often look boring from the outside because they don't waste energy on talking, they invest it in results. The less you talk, the more energy you have to execute. Money also favors consistency. Not bursts, not emotional spikes of motivation, but repeatable actions. If you go all in today and disappear tomorrow, you're not building, you're playing. The habit of doing the minimum every day, even in a bad state, eventually produces more than rare heroic efforts. Wealth is a cumulative effect that's almost invisible at the beginning. Another critical habit is thinking bigger. Most people limit themselves before they even start. They immediately think, this isn't for me. I can't do this. It's too hard. Wealthy people first ask themselves, how is this possible? They look for solutions, not excuses. Over time, this way of thinking becomes automatic. And finally, honesty with yourself. Self-deception is the greatest enemy of growth. As long as you pretend everything is under control, nothing changes. Real growth begins when you acknowledge your weaknesses and start working on them instead of hiding them. If you're still here, it means a conflict is already forming inside you between the old mindset and the new one. And that's a good sign. Because what comes next are the habits that permanently separate those who only dream about money from those who actually achieve it. Don't stop now. At a certain point, the path to money stops feeling inspiring. The excitement fades, the novelty disappears, and all that's left is you and repetitive work. And this is where most people break, because they're used to moving only when there are emotions. One of the most valuable habits of wealthy people is the ability to work without being in the mood, to do what's necessary not when you feel like it, but when it must be done. This is what maturity looks like. Wealth doesn't favor people who depend on motivation. Motivation is unstable, habits are not. If you wait for inspiration every time before taking action, you'll be waiting your entire life. Real growth begins where you continue, even when there's emptiness inside and no emotional reward. Another painful habit is the ability to endure pressure. When you start growing, people begin to talk, doubt you, and sometimes openly wish for your failure. And if every outside opinion throws you off balance, you won't survive the road to serious money. Wealthy people know how to filter noise. They hear criticism, but they don't live in it. Results matter more to them than applause. Next comes the habit of thinking long term. Most people live in short cycles from weekend to weekend, paycheck to paycheck, pleasure to pleasure. Wealthy people think in years. They're willing to invest now to get results later. If you can't delay rewards and build for the future, you'll always be dependent on fast money and random decisions. Very few people understand the value of silence and solitude. Constant noise, music, videos, other people's opinions prevents you from hearing yourself. The habit of regularly being alone with your thoughts is rare, but it's in these moments that strong decisions, clarity, and strategic thinking are born. Without this, you'll always act reactively. There's another habit that strongly separates people with money, the ability to take risks, but not recklessly. They calculate, analyze, prepare, and still move forward, even without a 100% guarantee. Those who wait for total safety never rise above the average. Growth is always connected to uncertainty. How you relate to time also matters. Wealthy people value it more than money because they understand that money can be earned again, but time cannot. They don't waste hours on meaningless conversations or pointless arguments. If you're constantly busy but not moving forward, your busyness is an illusion. And one more thing, the habit of finishing what you start. The world is full of people with ideas, but poverty is most often the result of incompletion. Every time you quit halfway, you train weakness into yourself. Each completed task strengthens your inner core, and without it, big money doesn't stay. If listening to this makes you uncomfortable, it means you're on the right path. Because ahead is the final layer of habits, the ones that turn growth into inevitability. And if you've made it this far, don't stop now. The most important part is next. At some point, you have to stop waiting for a sign. Stop hoping that everything will somehow fall into place, that the right person will appear, the perfect moment will come, or external permission will be given to start. One of the rarest and most valuable habits of wealthy people is that they don't wait. They start with what they have, imperfect conditions, fear, doubt, and a lack of full certainty. Because action always cures doubt, not the other way around. Money comes to those who think like creators, not consumers. If you only take content, emotions, entertainment, advice, you train yourself into a position of weakness. The habit of creating, delivering value, and solving other people's problems always comes back as money over time. Wealth is a reward for usefulness, not for desire. How you relate to your goals matters deeply. Wealthy people don't keep them in their heads, they put them on paper, into numbers, into specific actions. As long as a goal is vague, the result will be vague too. The habit of clearly defining where you're going makes the path shorter and more visible. If you don't know what you want, the world will offer you whatever is left. Another habit that changes everything is regular self-reassessment. Wealthy people constantly ask themselves uncomfortable questions. What am I doing wrong? Where am I wasting time? What skills do I urgently need to develop? They don't protect their ego, they protect their growth. As long as you justify yourself, you stay in the same place. There is also a spiritual side, not in a mystical sense, but a deep one. Gratitude for what you already have removes inner desperation and tension. And inner desperation always repels money. When you stop clinging and start acting from a position of strength and self-respect, the world begins to respond differently. Not because you got lucky, but because you changed. And finally, faith. Not blind faith, but quiet and steady. Faith that your efforts matter. That God sees your discipline, your work, and your honesty, even when no one is applauding. This faith holds you when there are no fast results. It keeps you from quitting too early. When you put everything you've just heard together, it becomes clear. Wealth is not the goal, it's the consequence. A consequence of who you become every day, your habits, your decisions, your discipline, and your responsibility. And now you have a choice. Close this video and return to the old life where everything feels familiar but nothing changes. Or start applying at least part of this today, because tomorrow will always be an excuse, and today is the only moment where real change can actually begin. The decision, as always, is yours.